Our brains are so powerful that, for instance, anxiety is a future-focused worry. It's actually very creative. We are throwing ourselves into the future, imagining negative outcomes, constantly scanning for how this could possibly go. But our bodies are getting signals it doesn't understand, whether like we're just imagining the tiger in the tall grass or there's actually a tiger in the tall grass. So
Right.
our bodies are getting these chemicals flooding into our systems because of our imaginations. Now, you can hack
Do
that
it.
back.
Right.
You can do the opposite, where
Right.
you can pick a positive, soothing memory that's meaningful to you. Again, ideally for extra bonus points, pick something in nature, and you can give yourself a lovely, lovely source of serotonin. It brings down cortisol and helps you shift your mood. No drugs.
Welcome to Cake for Dinner. This is not your everyday mom podcast. We laugh, we curse, we tell the truth, and we're here to ditch the perfection culture. Today I'm sitting down with Laura Rubin, writer, speaker, and founder of AllSwell Creative, whose work has been featured in the New York Times, Forbes, and Vogue. Her new book, The Big Unlock, is all about getting unstuck and reconnecting with yourself. Laura Rubin, welcome to Cake for Dinner.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for making space for this conversation.
I'm super excited, and I really want to just jump straight into the book, if you're okay with that.
Great. Let's do it.
Because I really think a lot of people do feel stuck, but don't even know why. What are you helping people see about themselves that they might be missing?
One of the things that's unique about the time in which we live is how much external noise we navigate on a day-to-day basis. From the moment we look at these brilliant little computers that we hold in our hands, we are in a constant state of react and respond.
Yep.
And so we are mitigating all of this information all day long. And the act of journaling helps us step away from that experience and actually have a space that is wildly accessible, has an almost no cost barrier, and there's no copay, there's no special outfit, you don't need a fancy retreat, and it's there as a tool for you to tap into your own intrinsic wisdom.
I love that. When you talk about being stuck, what does that actually look like in real everyday life? Like, what are you really referring to?
Well, I think blocks are different for different people. The same way that what you and I might be navigating, I am child free, right? So the cultural mores that I'm navigating may be different than the ones that you are. So I don't think there's one kind of
Right.
fits all approach to blocks. However, we do live in an age where, particularly in the realm of wellness, there is a lot of self-appointed guruism out there right now. I'm an expert and I have expert fatigue. I have advice overwhelm. And being able to actually have a space to tap into a quieter source of being able to parse out what's external noise and what really works for you, answering the simple questions of how do I feel? What do I think? What is true for me? What do I want? How can I be of service? Those things, unfortunately, we often go many, many days without answering those simple questions for
Right.
ourselves.
I think to your point, right? Stuck can look so different depending on sort of what you're stuck in or
Yes.
what's going on in your world. But what are like some of the feelings associated? Because a lot of times life experiences and situations can be very different, but typically, well, often the feeling is similar. Like, what feelings do you see associated with stuck?
Almost all blocks have a kernel of fear associated with them. So when I'm doing creative coaching sessions and I'm hearing that somebody is blocked around a particular creative project or around creating a vision for themselves or meeting a deadline or what have you, I help them unpack what that fear actually is, naming it, taking a look at it, and then unpacking it. Is that fear legitimate? Is that fear something that is insurmountable? Can we talk about what it looks like to set that aside and do this good thing and hard thing anyway that may have exponential reward? And that's really the stuckness usually has a kernel of fear associated with it.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And when you're saying about the thing that works, or it can have a huge, I forgot the word that you just used, but you're talking about journaling, correct? Is that the
I'm talking
right?
about I'm talking about my approach to mindful writing,
Right.
which is very intentional. So there's the typical approach to journaling that most people associate with the act is just emoting on the page. And that is a completely legitimate way of utilizing pen to paper, but it is just one way. I call it the little black dress of journaling, but it certainly isn't the only tool in the toolkit. And what I try to do is give people many more approaches and tools so that they can reach for them on any given day. You know, maybe some days you want that cozy cashmere, another day you want that very structured dries. It's all about like what you need in that particular day that's going to meet you where you are and help propel you forward.
So it all falls under sort of the umbrella of journaling, but what are some of the different variations that you're alluding to?
So, for instance, I am super cerebral. I essentially feel like I'm a brain walking around on stilts most of the time. And so I do a lot of work with my journal to help me become more mindfully embodied. Otherwise, I'm like up here somewhere. I'm not like even in the room. And I have learned I'm not the world's greatest meditator, you know? And so I have utilized mindful writing as a tool to help me become more present. For other people, they may want to shift their mood. They're in a negative headspace and they want a little nice serotonin bath, a way to help them become in a more positive space. That's available too.
What would that
Also,
look like? Asking for a friend.
Oh, one of my favorite tools for tapping into a source of serotonin is to pick a positive memory, ideally something that occurred in nature. So I suggest what's a favorite sunrise or sunset from memory that has meaning to you. Where were you? Who were you with? How did it feel? Bring your five senses into it. Was your skin warm or cold? Were you drinking a warm beverage? Were you by a fire? Were you at the ocean? What were you looking at? Why was it meaningful to you? And spend time in that memory.
And so you
So
write about that sort of
you write
memory.
about it. You revisit that positive memory on the page. Now, here's what's remarkable. Our brains are so powerful that, for instance, anxiety is a future focused worry. It's actually very creative. We are throwing ourselves into the future, imagining negative outcomes, constantly scanning for how this could possibly go. But our bodies are getting signals it doesn't understand whether, like, we're just imagining the tiger in the tall grass or there's actually a tiger in the tall grass. So
Right.
our bodies are getting these chemicals flooding into our systems because of our imaginations. Now, you can hack
Do
that
it.
back.
Right.
You can do the opposite, where
Right.
you can pick a positive, soothing memory that's meaningful to you. Again, ideally for extra bonus points, pick something in nature, and you can give yourself a lovely, lovely source of serotonin. It brings down cortisol and helps you shift your mood. No drugs, just
Why do you
journaling.
say pick nature?
Because we are nature and because we are spending so much time in a digitized world that even the memory of nature gives us a little taste of what it's like to be in nature.
You know, a funny story. I have no idea why I'm sharing this on a podcast, but when I was in college and on acid, I called my dad once because there was a girl that was just so fucked up she couldn't like get a hold of herself, and he's like, "Oh, just take her into nature." Like he's like, people on drugs and babies, it's soothing. We thought my dad had like hung the moon. We took her outside, and all of a sudden she was better. So I was just curious as to your thoughts around nature.
Yes, well, there are a couple different chapters in the book. One focused on the power of water, and one around the power of awe, specifically in the presence of nature. And awe is one of my favorite drugs. It is like such an incredible experience to be in the presence of something that is awe-inspiring, whether that's extraordinary music or redwood trees. And it registers in us in such a way that it lifts us up and gives us more of a sense of reverence and a picture of something that is much bigger than who we are. So that is available to us in extraordinary natural settings. However, I don't live near California redwoods, so how do we access the power of nature? So one of my favorite prompts that's in my water-oriented, my ocean-oriented workshop is, what is your favorite body of water and why? And I've led hundreds of workshops in all different kinds of environments. And there was one, I love seeing how people answer these questions. I never ask anybody to share from the pages of their journal. That would be like awkward and antithetical, but sometimes they do share where they went and how it was for them. And there was a pro surfer who was in one of my workshops, and I expected her to talk about like some big wave break where she had some like, gnarly experience. Instead, she said, it's the water in her cells. I had another woman who is one of like the world's great top models. I will not name her name. And she said it is her kitchen sink where she bathes her son. So this idea of the
Grandiosity, right?
yeah, the power of water. Tapping into the power of water doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to Waimea. It can be the people have said like it's the water in their tea kettle, it's their bathtub, it is particular places that are dear and near to them, but also these like quotidian points of access. And being able to tap into that through journaling with a mindful prompt that helps you be more intentional draws that out of you.
I think it's the mindful prompt that's so sort of differentiates this from journaling. Like I feel like you hear journaling and you either are into it or you're not, right? But when you really listen to what you're saying, it's just so much more involved than that. Like what you're trying to get out of it could be very different. The prompt could be very different. So I love like really digging into it and really like understanding kind of the real meaning behind the book and the purpose and like sort of what your thoughts are around those things, because it's so much bigger than journaling.
Yes, and I started my business AllSwell Creative because I recognized journaling had a terrible PR problem. This was 12 years ago, and at the time it was more associated with teen angst and cringe poetry than being the legitimate modality for mental physiological well-being that it is. And one of the key aspects of my approach and what you can see in my book is, and one of the parts that I'm most proud of is how many peer-reviewed scientific studies I cite, because I want to make sure that people better understand that this isn't just like my good intentions. And also it helps them better prioritize making space for it in their lives.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating how vast it is, right? It really is. So you focus a lot on patterns and the stories we tell ourselves. How do you actually shape the way we live without so how do those stories, I guess, actually shape the way we live without realizing it?
So
even your story about water, or even that reference, right? It's like a lot, in large part, about the story that we associate with those places or experiences that I think would make them memorable.
So neurologically, we default to ruts. They are the ways that we get used to thinking about things, reacting to things, and doing things. So the more it's like water that sluices down a mountain. It's like that rut becomes deeper and deeper over time. And so we naturally default to that. For instance, I am not a naturally optimistic person. I am a Jew from New York. We are worried people. That is how we are built. We are constantly scanning for threats, right? And I had a major health incident when I was 30. I had breast cancer. I'm clearly fine. But at the time, once I came through the worst of it and I looked around at my life, I said, I don't want to be that way anymore. I am so lucky to be here. I want to have a greater sense of joy and optimism. How can I do that? Well, it turns out what you focus on a consistent basis does help shift that neurological pattern. You can become a happier person. So not everybody has different happiness settings in their brains, right? Some people are just like naturally glass half full people. My boyfriend is one of them. I find him to be amazing. I just witness him and I'm like, wow, that's incredible. And me, not so much. But what I realize is that through a consistent practice in my journal, that I'm actually able to shift my baseline happiness settings. No drugs, right? This is just about a consistent practice. And what it does is it helps provide us with a sense of metacognition. We're able to see our thoughts rather than just be subject to them, and also provide us with a sense of agency. So there we are in this world, and rather just being subject to our thoughts and our patterns over and over again, guess what? We get to say, no, wait a minute, I participate in this and I want to do it differently.
So is there any like simple, short, easy give to the listeners if you aren't naturally an optimistic person? Let's just use that as an example. Is there something daily that can sort of shift those, pathways, or, help you to become more optimistic or happy, as you say?
Yes, absolutely. The easiest one is a gratitude practice. And gratitude is a superpower, right? And it's fascinating to actually see that people who have a consistent gratitude practice, and this actually sounds like almost like so literal, it's ridiculous. They have better heart health. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, it's so literal that you're kind of like, what, really? But the thing about a gratitude list is that I actually think that they're kind of corny. So I don't want to be like, oh, I'm grateful for the sun, I'm grateful for the moon, I'm grateful for grandma's health. Like it feels like too rote. And so what I recommend people do is use their 5 senses. What sights, sounds, tastes, textures, and scents are they grateful for? Ooh. What that means is that it fires up your imagination and it casts gratitude in this whole new light. And you also, over time, start witnessing things and you remember them. You're like, oh, wait, I'm grateful for that scent. Oh, I'm grateful for that texture. And then you're bringing your mind to these things and you are amplifying those things in real time. So you are shifting your mindset. One of the other tools for keeping a gratitude practice fresh, because what I found is that people were feeling guilty. That if they didn't mention, for instance, like, I'm grateful for grandma, let's use grandma's health as an example, it was like they were putting a hex on grandma. Mm-hmm. Like the amount of journaling guilt they felt about not. Yes. So what I say is, okay, I want you to write down the usual suspects. 1 page in your journal, the usual suspects of things that you are eternally grateful for. You are grateful for these things in perpetuity. Now let's move on, because the real gift is in casting that wider net and lifting your gaze up above the treetops, having a look around and finding new sources of gratitude.
I really like that idea of the 5 senses, because I'm a big fan of a gratitude list, but I've never looked at it from that perspective. And anytime I tell my kids, hey, let's do a gratitude list, my son's like, all right, I'm grateful for you, grateful for the dogs. And I'm like, this doesn't feel like this is really moving us into gratitude. You know what I mean? So I like that as a sort of guide. And I also like the list of usual suspects, because that also gets confusing. And I think sometimes people, as you mentioned, guilt, you feel like me saying I'm grateful for this episode somehow says that I'm not grateful for the one before it.
Right.
It doesn't have to work like that. So hopefully the listeners will really enjoy and implement that. How can someone start to recognize their own patterns if they've been living in them for years?
So this idea of living in the cacophony that is our everyday thought patterns
Yep.
and the digital noise that we are all mitigating makes it very difficult to see those things. And when you are able to recognize what I call the big rocks, so what are your big rocks? If you have a vase and you have your big rocks, your medium-sized rocks, your sand, and your gravel, well, unless you put those big rocks in first, they're not going to fit. So identifying what those really important elements are to you and making sure that you are naming them, prioritizing them, and creating space for them, like in also a logistical way, which you can identify in your journal. And that shifts those default cycles, and we're able to live with greater intention and joy. It's also about this idea of there's a beautiful there's a beautiful set of lists that Nora Ephron left. She knew she was about to pass away, and she wrote lists of things that she wouldn't miss, and then she wrote the list of the things she would. And to be identifying what those things are, because a brush with mortality is the great reset, and I've lived that, but you don't have to in order to attain it. So to be able to use the pages of your journal to be able to identify what those things are on a semi-regular basis, it brings our attention back to them, and we live a much more inspired life.
Yeah, and I do, and this is where I think journaling has a huge benefit. I'm sober for 23 years, and so I've had a lot of time spent in Alcoholics Anonymous, and one of the things that they do is
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And you write a lot of, it's a whole thing that you do, but one of the things that it really brings to light are the patterns and the how you function, typically in the face of resentment, but nonetheless, it's written down. And I found that to be so much more impactful than just talking it through. Not just visually you're seeing it written, but you're seeing the pattern over and over because it's coming up over and over. So I do think there is something to writing just in general, and also having the actual sort of, I don't want to say like, you have it in front of you. It's like the evidence, if you will, that like this is a real pattern and you can see it with your own eyes. So I love journaling for that as well.
And Keisha, there's a reason why journaling longhand is so effective. Now, I'm not a purist. I would rather have somebody journal by any means than trying to make it perfect. Like, let's not be perfect, be the enemy of good. Okay? So if you're going to use a journaling app or your notes app or a keyboard, I would rather have you tap a form of self-expression than not.
Sure.
But what you referred to, that longhand pen to paper, there are synaptic connections that get made in your brain that actually amplify the benefits of the practice. It also means that you're able to retain them greater. You are remembering what you have written about. So if you are making a commitment, for instance, it is easier for you to retain that commitment to memory if you have written that longhand.
That's wild, because in 23 years of how many women I've helped through this process, not one person has ever asked if they could do it any other way. I mean, I give the directions and it's on paper, but I've never had that. And now if it does come up, I will say no, because let's stick to the OG method, but that's literally never come up. So once someone sees it, the pattern, how do they actually begin to unpack it and change it?
Now, you don't have to do it alone. There's a chapter where I talk about rock stars need roadies. Often we think we have to do it all by ourselves. Guess what? You don't have to. And when you sit down and you write a list of what kinds of help do you need, even if you don't know, you don't know an endocrinologist, but you know you need one. And it could
Right.
be something really simple like a dog walker, or it could be something like VC funding. But the point is, once you are identifying on paper the kinds of support that you would benefit from in order to shift your life, then you can start enrolling people in that vision. You can start sharing with people, this is what you're looking for, and it's remarkable what will show up. But
Yeah.
before you are aware of it, you're sitting in it thinking, I have to do this all by myself. But you don't. And
And change when you're sitting looking at it, like even the concept or the idea of it can just look overwhelming, you know.
yes,
So I love that rock stars need roadies, right? Like we all do.
yes, we all do. If you think about like a headliner out on the road, they're not like also selling the merch, We all need support in the different ways.
Yes.
And like maybe you need somebody to do something that you're just not great at. And instead of leaning into the places that are where your greatness doesn't lie, let somebody else's greatness come in.
Right.
You focus on your vision and where your talents are.
Yeah, that is so good. Um, where does journaling come into this? What does writing things down do that just thinking about it doesn't? So we've covered it a little bit, but if somebody is trying to uncover a pattern, like at what stage do you implement the journaling?
Well, I'm a journaling expert. I'm not a psychologist. I don't have a psychology degree like you do. So I stay in my lane. I can give people journaling advice. And when they come to me, usually that's what they're looking for.
Sure.
Now, in terms of like at what point, it's like, well, that is essentially like the beginning, middle, and end for where I'm meeting them. And I also like it's important to me that I'm really clear about that. It's like when sometimes people ask me to, well, can you kick things off? Can you kick a workshop off with a guided meditation? And I'm like, no, I don't have that training and lineage. I'm happy to source somebody. So like I want to stay in my lane. In terms of the how, I think that there's a lot to be said, and the why. I think there's a lot to be said for externalizing your thoughts. So, as opposed to them running in loops, or there's something you pushed to the side, to the back, right? They become like, I say, dust bunnies become dust elephants, right? And you give them the space to come out and spill out on the page, and you can take a look at them. Now, once you've taken a look at these things, then you can unpack them. Then you can see what's really there for you. Is this an actual barrier, or is it something that's just an irrational fear? Okay, there is a rational fear here. That's okay. Let's take a look at ways to address it, minimize it, so that it doesn't run us, as an example. It really is about that like externalizing, and then not just stopping there. My approach is like, okay, then let's workshop it. Let's go further. Then let's take structured steps for what comes next. I think it was Stephen Covey who said that there are a lot of things that I'm going to butcher this a little bit, but there are a lot of things that are urgent but unimportant, but the things that are important sometimes are not urgent. And we spend too much time on the former and not enough time on the latter. And intentional journaling helps us spend more time in that space, that secondary space.
Yes, two things. One, I see why you say it's beginning, middle, and end, because the whole thing is journaling sort of to see what you uncover, and then
Yes.
using forms of the journaling to sort of unpack it, deal with it, and also, like I just see the value there for sure. What if someone listening feels stuck but doesn't even know where to start, so you dialed into the gratitude list, which I love because it is easy and conceptually even, right? Is there anything else that someone could do, like that's a real step that someone could take today? Because I feel like anybody listening is going to have forms of being stuck, like you said in the beginning, right? Like life happens. I think we've uncovered that it's not just journaling, that there are different sort of really almost like modalities of journaling itself could be the modality, and there's just different ways of going about it depending upon your goal.
Yes.
What's like another sort of low-hanging fruit that people can implement that's like relatively easy with a good outcome?
Yeah, giving people a really accessible on-ramp is important to me. I feel that my whole approach is about meeting people where they are neurologically and building a big enough tent and inviting more people in, people who probably would not journal otherwise, which is one of the reasons why I love working with corporate groups and
Yep.
and VC firms and formerly incarcerated, formerly homeless people, and wounded special forces veterans. These are groups that probably wouldn't otherwise journal. So one of the things that I suggest is what I call 4 by 4 by 4. Journal for 4 minutes at a time. Even the busiest people I know, and by that I don't mean the CEOs that I'm coaching. I mean single working mothers, the busiest people I know. 4 minutes at a time, and don't do it every day. Only do it 4 days a week, and try to stick with it for 4 weeks. Now, it isn't whole 30. If you veer away, you can come back. You don't have to start over again. It's about bringing your attention back to the practice. I want to assuage all that journaling stress and guilt, okay? But by setting it at a reasonable bar, what that means is you're getting a nice little dopamine hit from a sense of accomplishment. It isn't as overwhelming, and you're less likely to veer into perfectionism. And I'm giving people enough of a runway that they're starting to have positive associations and they're seeing the effects. Now, if you get to the 4 minute mark and you want to keep writing, blow through that and keep going. And some days just making it to that 4 minute mark is going to be tough. It's all okay. But that's a really nice, gentle on-ramp to start trying out this practice.
Yeah, I like that because I mean, my whole thing is perfection is boring, and I like your, whole 30 thing. It's like, because I think, and maybe this is my addict brain, but like if I'm committed to something like that and I fuck up, then I'm just quitting, which is like a terrible strategy, especially at 51. But I think your 444 gives people the freedom to not get it totally exactly perfectly right and still get the benefit of continuing on.
Right. I wasn't the first person that said perfectionism is the voice of the oppressor.
Yeah.
And what I want to share is that every single person on this earth has a critical voice. It's not just you. And I say that like if you met your critical voice like at a party, you'd be like, yikes, what happened to them? And try to like go refresh your drink. You would try to get away from them as quickly as
Oh
possible.
my God, that is so good.
And by being because it's you're like, yikes, what
So true.
yeah, they're often the cruelest voice that we spend time with, and they're really not interesting. They're super negative and
It's
cruel.
nobody you'd want to be friends with. I always say it's like your critical voice, if you say like sort of rises up, and I have to tell her like knock it off, but like mine's there with like a whistle and like a clipboard, you know what I mean, just like telling
Yes.
me exactly what's fucking wrong with me. I grew up as an athlete, and pretty like amazing but also perfectionist parents. And so that's my critical voice. Like she shows up with her clipboard to sort of note all the shit I'm doing wrong. And I think everybody sort of sees I love that as an exercise, like taking time to like identify your critical voice. Like what does he or she look like? What are they wearing? How do they act? What's their hair like? Like, because then when she comes in, like, I'm like, oh, that's her. Like, lady, take a seat, you know?
Yes, I love that. I'm going to use that. And that's metacognition, right? When you have space and you can see your thoughts instead of
Yes.
being subject to them. The way I see it is like I didn't banish my anxiety or my critical voice. It like actually like my anxiety in some ways helps me avoid
Sure.
mistakes, right? So it's not going to go away, but I can other it. I can other
Yes.
it, whether it's perfectionism, anxiety, critical voice, wears a lot of different hats. But what I say is they get a seat at the table, but they're no longer the MC of the party. They're not running things. And that's what I'm able to recognize while engaged in journaling is when the
Mhm.
critical voice comes through. What I ask people to say is when it shows up, because it will, frequently, infrequently, but it'll show up,
Yes.
just recognize it and keep going because that's where the goodies are. That's where the creative
Yes.
juice is, and that's the stuff that fuels our lives.
Two things. And the keep going creates confidence. And then also, so I see like the critical voice as a whole thing, but then also the anxiety associated with like thinking in the future and like you're almost like anticipating shit to go wrong. Like I'm a big daydreamer. Like if I'm driving, like Lord knows I should be paying attention to the road, but like I am so in my head, like I could break out into tears at any moment. Like I am. And I one time prior to getting married, I was like, I guess just like imagining myself walking down the aisle and I tripped, but I was like, what the fuck? This is my own daydream. Like I am dreaming this on my own conscious in a car. This isn't a dream with me asleep. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
like, what a bad strategy for life, you know? And I think writing these things down really intensifies that part of like, oh, wow. Like, cause that's a pattern, thinking negatively, anticipating things going wrong, you know,
Yeah, but
is
it's evolutionary. That's where it's coming from. It's not like some lack of character,
right.
like, oh, if I had grit, I wouldn't be doing this. Like, no, it's an evolutionary tool that we are like biology helped us get here by utilizing it so that we were able to scan for threats. And
Yeah.
it makes perfect sense. Just like our dopamine receptors come from things like monitoring rewards like berries in the bush. So all of this stuff is hardwired into us. And
Yeah.
what one of the things that I really try to instill is just like a little bit more self-compassion for this
Yeah.
stuff. Because it's not your fault, but why don't we just also like witness it, see it, and then say, but I don't want to be limited by that. I want something different. I want something more.
Yeah, that's my referee coming and blowing the whistle. You know, like that's the compassion for myself is something that's always been a little bit tough for me. Um, so, yeah. So, what about one more? I just love to leave people with like real takeaways because not everybody is going to jump to the book right away. You know, we're lucky if people listen to the entire podcast. We are in this space of urgency. I love what you said earlier about that. So I love the gratitude list because I think most people understand what that is. And now we have the 5 senses to add to that. Is there anything else that would be sort of an easy, I love the serotonin bath if that's what our goal is. So is there anything else sort of like that that we could impart on the listeners?
Yeah, I have something called dopamine push-ups. So, if we are deprived from dopamine, we will go towards sources that aren't necessarily super healthy, like scrolling, for instance. And we're getting hits of dopamine, so we're going to be staying more engaged.
Mm-hmm.
If we are trying to minimize that, or let's say you're going through a terrible breakup where you're suddenly going to be deprived of oxytocin and serotonin. Well, you can counter that by doing some dopamine push ups. Find out the main sources of dopamine that are available. And it doesn't mean like going to Tahiti. It could just be cooking a new recipe or taking a different route home, trying something new, trying something different, and being in nature. All of those things, all the different ways that you can experience dopamine that are actually good for you, identify them, write a list of them, and then go do them. And I challenge anybody to not feel better.
And then you have that list as a reference for your push-ups in the future.
Yes.
I
And
love
you
that.
can continue to update it.
Right, right, right. I love that. I love this. I'm so excited selfishly to understand this more because I love a serotonin bath. And I will admit that I was the kind of person that would say I don't like journaling. It's weird because I'm a writer. I think just time with my feelings doesn't sound exciting to me. But I love the way you break it down in bite-sized pieces that really like make sense and are tangible and easy to comprehend and to implement. So if somebody is listening and they want to get more of this, where would they find the book? Where would they find you? And sort of, is it a private practice that you run? Like, tell us a little bit about that. So how would they go about that?
The book will be at all major booksellers, and I'm delighted to say. In terms of working with me, I lead digital journaling workshops. So that means that people are able to join either a single session, or I also have different themed groupings of sessions. So regardless of where you are, you're able to come join. I also lead in-person sessions, and you can gain access to that schedule and be the first to hear about things by checking out our website, and that's allswellcreative.com. Also, I make sure to give away a ton of original IP on our Instagram so that if people are resource constrained, they don't need to pay me or anybody else in order to gain access to this information. And that handle is AllSwell Creative. And also my individual channel is Laura Rubin. So those are some of the places that you can connect with me, and this stuff works. That's what's so great. And I'm out here just like bringing people to the page, and what I love is what they connect with, what they are able to then reflect back to me that they've discovered.
Yeah, I'm very grateful that you came on today and taught us all about journaling and sort of, I think, opened at least my eyes to a completely new view of journaling. I do think that the current perception is a bit outdated. So I'm very grateful for you and for you coming on. If you aren't already, please subscribe to Cake for Dinner on YouTube. We are on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple, everywhere where you can find a podcast. And we're here every week with a different woman, or now we have Cake for Dinner Dad Edition, experts and real women telling real stories. So Laura Rubin, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate you.
An honor and a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me into your community.